In a quiet mountain town, blanketed by snow, a retired police officer in a wheelchair lives alone, haunted by the memory of the partner he lost 3 years ago, a German shepherd named Rex. One cold morning, a phone call changes everything. A rescue shelter claims to have found a dog with his old K9 chip. Could it really be Rex who somehow survived the fire that took everything from him? Before we begin this incredible journey of faith, loyalty, and second chances, tell us where you are watching from in the comments below and stay until the end. You might just witness a miracle that will warm your heart forever. The first snow of December had begun to fall over Ashland Falls, a small mountain town in northern Oregon, where winter came like a soft invasion, quiet, persistent, and unforgiving. Pines bent beneath the white weight, and the air smelled faintly of iron and smoke from the chimneys that dotted the hillside. Inside a modest wooden cabin on the outskirts of town, Jack Callahan sat by the window in his wheelchair, watching the snow build its empire outside. Jack was 42, a man whose frame still carried the echo of strength. His once broad shoulders were narrower now, but his hands, scarred and steady, betrayed a past of command and discipline. His hair, once chestnut, had thinned and gone prematurely gray around the temples. The lines at the corners of his eyes spoke not of age, but of nights haunted by memory. 3 years earlier, a warehouse explosion during a narcotics raid had ended his service as a K9 officer and taken both his legs below the knee. It had also taken Rex, the German shepherd who had been his partner, his family, and, in many ways, his soul's last anchor. When the phone rang that morning, Jack almost didn't answer. Calls rarely came to this cabin. He lived alone now, a man reduced to silence and the hum of an old radio. The voice on the other end was soft, but carried a firm undertone. "Jack Callahan, this is Linda Hayes from the Riverbend Animal Rescue. We found a German shepherd with an old K9 microchip. The code traces back to your unit." Linda Hayes was in her late 40s, with the calm voice of someone who had seen both cruelty and kindness in equal measure. She had been running the shelter for a decade, known in town as the woman who never gave up on strays. Her kindness was practical, not sentimental, the sort that patched wounds before asking how they happened. For a long moment, Jack didn't reply. He stared at the photograph on the wall, him and Rex, both younger, standing beside a patrol truck dusted with snow. Rex's ears were high, his amber eyes sharp with intelligence. "That's impossible," Jack murmured. "Rex died in the fire." Linda hesitated. "Maybe, but you should see this one. He's scarred, looks older than his years, but there's something in his eyes." Jack's hand trembled on the receiver. For 3 winters he had lived with ghosts, his world shrinking to the cabin walls and the endless whisper of wind through the trees. Now that voice, steady and unsure all at once, was offering him something impossible, a chance to face what he had lost. "I'll be there before noon," he said finally. The drive to Riverbend took 2 hours through winding forest roads, snow thickened by the mile, coating the pines in silver. Jack drove his modified SUV, the hum of the engine filling the silence where conversation once lived. Every turn reminded him of the roads he used to patrol with Rex beside him, head out the window, fur rippling in the wind. He tried not to hope. Hope, he'd learned, was a dangerous thing when the past had already buried its dead. The Riverbend Animal Rescue sat on the edge of town, a simple building of white siding and blue trim, surrounded by wire fences half buried in snow. When Jack pulled up, a faint bark echoed from inside, deep and rough like gravel. He felt it vibrate in his chest before he even opened the door. Linda met him at the entrance, bundled in a worn green parka. She had kind gray eyes and the kind of expression that invited trust. "You must be freezing. Come in." She led him down a corridor that smelled faintly of disinfectant and wet fur. Along the way, dogs of all sizes watched him through their kennels, some barking, others simply staring with wary curiosity. "We found him 2 weeks ago," Linda explained. "Firefighters spotted him wandering near the edge of the burn zone up north, one of last summer's wildfires. His paws were torn up, fur scorched. We thought he wouldn't make it, but he pulled through." She stopped before the last enclosure. "His chip registered as inactive. Took a bit of digging to find your name." Jack wheeled closer, his heart thudding in his chest. Inside the kennel, a large German shepherd lay curled in the corner. His coat, once the deep sable of autumn woods, was marred with patches of pale gray where the fur had been singed. His right ear was nicked, and one hind leg carried a faint limp. But it was the eyes, those golden eyes, that made the breath leave Jack's lungs. "Rex," he whispered. At the sound, the dog's head lifted slowly. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was so silent that even the hum of the heater seemed to fade. Then, Rex's nose twitched. Recognition sparked like lightning. His tail thumped once against the floor. Jack swallowed hard, his throat thick. "Heel," he said softly, the word he'd spoken 1,000 times before, the command that had once meant trust, discipline, and love. Rex stood. He limped forward, cautious, as if afraid the dream might vanish. When he reached the gate, he pressed his muzzle against the bars, exhaling a low whine that trembled with memory. Jack reached out, resting his palm against the cold metal. Rex leaned into it, eyes closing, as though no time had passed at all. Linda turned away, blinking quickly. "We weren't sure he'd remember." Jack's voice was a whisper. "He didn't forget. I did." She opened the gate slowly. The metal creaked. Rex stepped out, his movement stiff but steady. When Jack reached down, Rex placed his head in his lap, carefully, reverently, like a soldier returning home. Jack felt the coarse fur beneath his fingers, the rise and fall of a living chest. For the first time in 3 years, warmth began to seep into the cold places inside him. They sat there for several minutes, man and dog, saying nothing. The storm outside deepened, wind rattling the windows, but inside, the air seemed still, suspended between grief and grace. When Jack finally looked up, Linda was smiling. "You should take him home. He's earned it." Jack hesitated. "I'm not sure I can take care of anyone anymore." Linda crouched beside him, her eyes kind but unyielding. "Maybe he's not the one who needs taking care of." Her words lingered as Jack signed the release papers. The shelter's fluorescent lights hummed softly above, casting halos on the floor. When he turned to leave, Rex walked beside his chair without being told, his gait slightly uneven, but his presence steady as a shadow. Outside, snow fell heavier, blanketing the parking lot in white. Jack opened the SUV door, and Rex jumped in with surprising grace, settling into the seat where he once rode patrol. For a heartbeat, it was as if time had folded back on itself. The past and present blurred into something whole. As they drove away, Jack glanced in the rearview mirror. The shelter sign disappeared behind the curtain of snow. Ahead, the road stretched through the pine forest, winding toward the cabin that had once been a place of exile. Rex lay quietly, his head resting near Jack's armrest, eyes half closed but alert, always alert. At a red light in town, Jack turned down the heater and looked at him. "You really came back, didn't you?" Rex thumped his tail once. Jack smiled for the first time in years. "Then maybe it's time I did too." Outside, the snow kept falling, endless, soft, merciful. And somewhere deep within that storm, something long dead began to breathe again. Snow still covered the roof of Jack Callahan's cabin when he and Rex returned to Ashland Falls that afternoon. The road home wound like a pale ribbon through a forest of pine and frozen creek beds. Each mile seemed to breathe ghosts of old patrol nights, of laughter that once filled the radio, of a younger man who believed that courage could fix everything. By the time Jack pulled into the narrow path leading to his cabin, twilight had begun to fall. The place looked smaller than he remembered, a square of wood and smoke nestled among trees heavy with snow. He parked near the porch and turned off the engine. "We're home," he said quietly, unsure whether he meant it for Rex or himself. Rex didn't move right away. He stared through the windshield, ears tilted, as though the cabin were something alive, a territory that needed permission to enter. His fur caught the last of the daylight, streaked with silver and soot. Jack opened his door, maneuvered his wheelchair onto the ramp he had built himself, and waited. "Come on, partner," he murmured. "You've been through worse." Rex jumped down at last. The snow crunched beneath his paws. He approached the cabin slowly, sniffing the air, tail held low, but not tucked. When they stepped inside, the heat from the old wood stove wrapped around them, filling the space with the smell of pine resin and ash. The cabin was simple, one main room that served as kitchen and living space, a small bedroom at the back, walls lined with photographs and maps of search zones from another life. On the table lay a half-finished cup of coffee and a Bible Jack hadn't opened in months. Rex circled once, then stood by the doorway, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar shapes and sounds. The hum of the heater, the clack of the wheelchair wheels, the creak of floorboards. When Jack rolled closer, Rex stiffened. The sound of the metal wheels made him flinch, head jerking toward the noise. "It's all right," Jack said softly, voice low and steady. "Just me, buddy. Same old me." But Rex didn't lie down. He remained at the edge of the room, alert, breathing fast. The war inside him was invisible but clear. Loyalty fighting memory. Fear fighting recognition. Jack lit a lamp and busied himself at the counter. "You hungry?" He poured kibble into a bowl and set it near the stove. Rex sniffed it but didn't eat. Instead, he padded toward the back door and sat there, watching the snow fall beyond the glass. That night, Jack lay in bed listening to the wind press against the windows. Every sound echoed, the sigh of the stove, the occasional creak of wood shifting under cold. Somewhere near the doorway, he could hear Rex moving, pacing, then lying down, then rising again. The rhythm reminded him of patrol nights when Rex would circle the perimeter of a scene, guarding even when everyone else slept. Around midnight, Jack woke to a sharp whimper. He turned his head and saw Rex trembling in his. Sleep, paws twitching, breath quick and uneven. A dream, Jack thought. The kind that doesn't let you go. He whispered into the dark, "You're safe, boy." The dog stirred, lifted his head, and for a fleeting moment, the fear in his eyes softened into something like trust. Morning came pale and cold. The storm had quieted, leaving the town muffled in snow. Jack brewed coffee and opened the front door to let in the light. Rex approached the doorway, hesitant, then stepped outside, paw prints marking perfect arcs in the snow. From across the small clearing, a voice called out, "Mr. Callahan!" It was Noah Green, the boy from next door, a thin, bright-eyed kid of about 10, with hair the color of chestnuts and a jacket 2 sizes too big. He carried a plate wrapped in foil. Behind him, a woman waved, a tall, slender figure in a wool coat, her dark hair tied loosely at the back. That was Elena Green, Noah's mother. Jack remembered her vaguely from the grocery store, polite, reserved, always with that faint air of exhaustion mothers wear when life asks for too much. Elena had moved to Ashland Falls 2 years ago, after her husband's death in a construction accident. A quiet widow trying to build new routines from old grief. "Hi, Mr. Callahan," Noah said as he trudged through the snow. "Mom baked apple pie. She said you should have some. It's too good to waste on us." Jack smiled faintly. "That's very kind, Noah. You didn't have to." Elena caught up, cheeks pink from the cold. He insisted, "I hope you don't mind." Her voice was warm but cautious, like someone learning to speak again after a long silence. Rex appeared in the doorway, tail raised halfway. His body tensed when Noah approached, the boy's small boots crunching near the porch. Jack noticed and said, "It's okay, Rex. He's a friend." Noah froze, eyes wide. "He's huge." "He's mostly heart," Jack said. The boy grinned and crouched a little, holding out his gloved hand. "Hey there, buddy." Rex sniffed the air, then stepped closer, his breath fogging in the cold. After a moment, he touched his nose to the glove. "That's a good sign," Jack said quietly. "He doesn't do that for everyone." Elena smiled, relief softening her face. "He's beautiful. You used to work with dogs, right?" "Used to," Jack replied. "Before the fire." The air fell into a gentle pause. Snowflakes landed on Rex's back, melting into his fur. Elena looked at Jack's wheelchair, at the scarred hands resting on the wheels, and then back to his eyes. "I'm glad he found his way back to you." Jack nodded. "Me too." They chatted a little longer, small talk about the weather, about how the school might close again if snow kept up. Noah laughed easily, his voice filling the cold air like a song the house had forgotten. Before leaving, Elena said, "You should come by sometime. We're right down the trail. If you ever need help with anything." "Thank you," Jack said, and meant it. When they left, the cabin felt different. The silence was no longer heavy. It was waiting, listening. Rex walked around the living room, sniffing each corner as though mapping it anew. Then he went to the spot beside the bed and lay down, not curled tight as before, but stretched out, one paw resting over the other. Jack watched him for a while. "You're starting to trust this place, huh?" he murmured, Rex blinked slowly, eyes half closed. That evening, Jack cooked dinner, simple stew from canned vegetables and leftover meat. He placed a small portion in Rex's bowl and sat back. The dog approached, sniffed, and began to eat in slow, steady bites. It was the first meal he had taken since coming home. Outside, the forest was dark, the only sound the hush of falling snow. Inside, the fire crackled softly. Jack rolled closer to the window, watching the shadows flicker across Rex's fur. He felt something inside him shift, a quiet click, like a lock being undone. Later that night, he turned off the lamp and settled into bed. The room glowed faintly from the embers. He could hear Rex breathing near his feet, the rhythm slow and protective. The world beyond the walls was still, wrapped in winter's hush, but inside, life had begun to hum again. For the first time in 3 years, Jack didn't dream of fire. He dreamed of snow and the sound of paws padding softly across wood floors. By the 3rd week of December, Ashland Falls had sunk into the deep silence that only a mountain winter could bring. The pines stood still as sentinels, roofs vanished beneath layers of snow, and the sun, when it appeared at all, lingered pale and far away, like a memory too shy to return. Jack Callahan had grown used to this quiet. It matched the rhythm of his days, measured, slow, and steady. But tonight, silence was not peace. It was the warning before the storm. That evening, the sky had turned a shade of steel, heavy with snow clouds. The local radio murmured of an approaching blizzard, one that might lock the entire valley by midnight. Jack double-checked the wood supply near the stove, made sure the generator was full, and turned up the thermostat. Rex followed him from room to room, tail flicking, the same way he used to pace alongside him on patrol, always half a step behind, always watchful. The cabin glowed with the amber light of the fire, and for a time, it almost felt like any ordinary night. Jack sat at his desk, a mug of coffee steaming beside him, a photograph of his old K9 unit lying open on the table. His breath misted slightly in the cool air as he traced the outline of the men in the picture. "You'd think we'd be used to storms by now," he muttered to Rex, who was stretched out near the hearth. Rex lifted his head, but didn't move. His ears flicked toward the window. A distant rumble of thunder rolled through the mountains, long and low. Jack frowned. Thunder in a snowstorm was rare here. "Strange," he whispered. Then a sharp pain clenched in his chest. He coughed, the sound dry and rough, and reached for the inhaler on the table. His fingers brushed it, then it fell, rolling just out of reach beneath the desk. He leaned forward, tried to grab it, but his body refused to cooperate. His lungs tightened as if wrapped in wire. Breath came shallow, thin. He pressed one hand to his chest, trying to stay calm. "Rex," his voice broke. The dog rose instantly, hackles lifting. He barked once, sharp and loud, then again. Jack waved a trembling hand. "No! Stay!" But Rex didn't listen. Something in his training, buried deep and pure, had awakened. He sniffed the air, ran to the door, and began scratching at it furiously. The wind outside howled against the walls, rattling the shutters. Snow whipped across the windows in white swirls. Rex barked louder, claws striking wood. The door wouldn't open easily. Jack had bolted it when the weather warning came. Rex backed up, then threw his weight against it once, twice, 3 times, until the latch snapped. The door flew open, a blast of frozen air and snow tearing into the room. In the house next down the trail, Elena Green woke to the sound of barking carried by the storm. She sat up, heart pounding. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The wind screamed against the walls, and she could hear the trees groaning outside. Then Noah appeared in the doorway of her room, his hair sticking out wildly. "Mom, that's Rex!" he shouted. Elena pulled on her coat. "Noah, stay here." "But what if something's wrong?" The boy's eyes were wide, filled with the kind of fear that doesn't need words. Elena hesitated. The barking grew louder, urgent, desperate, human almost. She cursed softly under her breath, grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand, and nodded. "Okay, but you stay close. Do you hear me?" They stepped outside into a storm that seemed alive. The snow came sideways, cutting the skin, erasing the world beyond the reach of their flashlight. The beam wobbled through the blizzard, catching glimpses of white drifts, dark trees, and then, there, 2 paw prints vanishing into the wind. "This way!" Noah yelled, voice nearly lost to the gale. They followed the prints up the narrow trail toward Jack's cabin. The closer they got, the louder the barking grew. When they reached the porch, Elena froze. The front door was half open, snow piling at the threshold, and Rex was there, darting in and out, barking toward the inside. "Jack!" Elena shouted, stepping in. The air inside was cold. The fire had nearly died. Jack lay near his wheelchair, his face pale, lips blue around the edges. The inhaler glinted uselessly under the desk. "Oh, God!" she gasped, rushing to his side. "Noah, call 911, now!" Noah pulled the phone from his pocket, hands shaking. "There's no signal, Mom." Elena pressed her fingers to Jack's neck. A pulse, weak but there. She remembered the emergency training from her old job as a community volunteer, years before her husband's accident. She tilted Jack's chin gently, checking his breathing. "Hang on, Jack. Just hang on." Rex whined beside her, circling anxiously. His fur was coated with frost. His breath came in clouds. When Jack's chest stilled for too long, Rex nudged him with his nose, then barked again, louder this time, toward the open door, as if calling for someone. Anyone. "Mom," Noah pointed. Through the white curtain of snow, faint red and blue lights flickered in the distance. The rescue truck from town. The sound of a siren rose and fell, distant but real. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "He did it," she whispered. "He brought them here." Minutes later, 2 paramedics burst through the doorway, snow flying from their coats. "We got the call from dispatch," one said breathlessly. Neighbor reported flashing lights from this direction. Elena helped them lift Jack onto a stretcher. As they worked, Rex stood watch at the doorway, refusing to move until they were ready to go. When the stretcher was loaded into the ambulance, Rex tried to jump in, but a paramedic blocked him. "Sorry, boy, not this time." Jack's hand, half conscious, lifted weakly. "Let him come," he murmured. The medic hesitated, then nodded. "All right, just this once." Rex climbed in, curled, beside Jack's side, head resting near his shoulder as the doors closed. When Jack opened his eyes again, it was daylight. The storm had passed. Sunlight spilled through the hospital window, pale and clean. He could hear distant voices in the corridor, the steady beep of a heart monitor. And at the foot of the bed, lying on a blanket someone must have brought in, was Rex, sleeping, his fur still damp, but his chest rising and falling with calm rhythm. Linda Hayes from the shelter stood by the window. She smiled when Jack stirred. "You've got quite a guardian there. The paramedics said he wouldn't leave your side." Jack's throat felt dry. "He found help?" "They said the dog's barking drew your neighbors out during the storm. Without him, they might not have seen the light in time." Jack looked down at Rex, emotions welling up like tidewater. He reached out and brushed his fingers through the coarse fur. Rex's eyes opened halfway, golden and warm, and his tail tapped once against the floor. Jack whispered, "Good boy. You came back twice." Outside, the world was reborn under a new sheet of snow. In the distance, church bells rang faintly through the valley. The storm had left its mark, fallen branches, broken fences. But in this small hospital room, something greater had survived. 3 weeks had passed since the storm, but in the hearts of the townsfolk of Ashland Falls, it still lingered. A night that had tested faith and courage and left behind a story worth retelling. The snow had softened now, glistening under the shy sun, and the mountains breathed again. Jack Callahan returned home from the hospital, with Rex trotting beside his wheelchair. The dog had healed quickly, though the scars along his flank were still visible, a rugged pattern of survival. Jack himself looked stronger too, his face less hollow, his eyes steadier. He had learned to breathe without fear again, though his lungs still burned from time to time. When he reached his cabin, the first thing he saw was a small crowd of neighbors waiting by the porch. Children with red cheeks and wool scarves, old Mr. Carson from the gas station, even the mail carrier, all smiling. And standing a bit apart, holding a basket of flowers, was Elena Green, her dark coat contrasting with the snow, and Noah, who bounced on his toes with excitement. Jack blinked, surprised. "What's all this?" Elena smiled. "A welcome home, Mr. Callahan. The whole town's been talking about you and Rex." "I didn't do anything," Jack said quietly. "He did." Noah grinned, holding up a small handmade sign that read, "Our hero has 4 paws." "That's what I said in my essay." Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "Essay? Elena nodded. It was for his English class. The topic was someone who inspires me. He wrote about Rex. His teacher cried. The crowd laughed softly. Someone began to clap, and soon the applause spread through the group. Rex stood still at first, uncertain, then barked once, tail wagging. After everyone left, Elena stayed behind to help unpack a few things. She moved easily around the cabin, wiping dust from shelves, refilling the kettle, and setting the flowers by the window. There was something graceful in the way she moved, not just in her hands, but in the way she left warmth behind wherever she passed. "You don't have to fuss," Jack said. "I know," she replied, "but it feels good to fuss over someone who deserves it." Rex lay by the fire, eyes half closed, content. The world outside was quiet, but for once, it didn't feel empty. That evening, Noah knocked on the door again, holding a paper folded neatly in half. "Mom said I should show you before it goes to the newspaper." Jack took it, curiosity flickering. The title at the top read, "My Hero Has 4 Paws." He began to read. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms or medals. Sometimes they have fur and scars. My neighbor, Mr. Callahan, used to be a K-9 officer. He lost his legs in a fire, and his partner, Rex, went missing. Everyone thought Rex was gone, but he came back. Not once, but twice. He saved his partner during the War of the Snow. He barked until help came. He didn't give up, even when the wind tried to swallow his voice. Rex reminds me that faith isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are. I think God sent Rex back because Mr. Callahan needed a reason to believe again. And now, so do I. Jack's vision blurred for a moment. He blinked hard. "This is beautiful, Noah." The boy shrugged, cheeks pink. "Mrs. Miller said maybe the Ashland Daily would print it. She took a picture of you and Rex for the story." Jack raised an eyebrow. "She did, huh?" The next morning, the article appeared. Local K-9 returns from the dead to save his partner in blizzard. The photo captured Jack in his wheelchair, with Rex sitting tall beside him, snow melting on his fur, eyes bright. Beneath it, the words from Noah's essay shimmered like prayer. By noon, the town was buzzing. People stopped Jack on the street to shake his hand, to pet Rex, to thank them both for reminding everyone that miracles could still happen, even in the smallest of places. Someone pinned the article on the bulletin board at the diner, someone else dropped off a basket of food, and at the church, Pastor Hill mentioned them in his sermon. Sometimes God sends his angels not with wings, but with paws. Jack found it all strange, almost embarrassing. He had spent years trying to disappear, and now he couldn't walk down Main Street without hearing whispers of, "That's him." But he didn't mind the attention as much as he thought he would. There was a quiet pride beneath the awkwardness, a sense that maybe his pain had found a purpose. That night, he sat outside on the porch with Rex at his feet, watching the sky darken. The town lights twinkled below like fallen stars. Elena came walking up the trail, her breath misting in the air. She carried 2 mugs of cocoa. "I figured you might need this," she said, handing him one. He smiled. "You read the paper?" "I did. 3 times," she admitted. It's been a long time since this town had something hopeful to talk about. They drank in silence for a while. The wind had softened, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed. "You know," Elena said quietly, "before I moved here, I didn't believe in second chances. After my husband died, I just stopped looking for good things. But when I saw Rex that night in the storm, when he led us to you, it felt like God was reminding me he still works through small miracles." Jack looked down at Rex, who now rested his head on his lap. "Maybe he does," he said softly. "Maybe that's why we both survived, to remind someone else not to give up." Elena's eyes shimmered in the firelight. "Maybe to remind yourself, too." He smiled, the kind of smile that comes from deep places. Not joy, not sadness, but something stronger than both. Maybe so. Inside, the phone rang. Rare again, but familiar now. Jack rolled in to answer. It was Linda Hayes, from the shelter. "You've made my day, Jack. We've had 3 adoption requests this morning, all from people who said they were inspired by your story." Jack laughed softly. "Guess Rex is recruiting," Linda chuckled. "Guess so. You two started something." When the call ended, he turned back to the fire. where Elena was laughing at Noah's attempt to teach Rex to shake hands. The dog raised one paw solemnly, and Noah whooped with delight. Jack watched them, the boy's laughter, the woman's gentle patience, the loyal creature who'd bridged a chasm between past and present. And for the first time, he didn't see brokenness when he looked around his home. He saw family. Outside, snow began to fall again, softly, peacefully. Not a storm this time, just a gentle reminder that even winter can be kind. And in the small town of Ashland Falls, the story of the dog who came back twice became more than news. It became a testament to faith, to friendship, and to the quiet courage that survives in the hearts of those who keep believing. Spring came late to Ashland Falls, creeping through the snow like a hesitant guest. The icicles that once lined the cabin roof melted into trickles, and the forest began to breathe again. Yet, even as the earth thawed, the nights held a certain chill, a reminder that peace is fragile, that quiet can be broken by a single sound. Jack Callahan had found something close to peace since the storm. He volunteered part-time at the Riverbend Animal Rescue, helping Linda Hayes with training difficult dogs. Rex accompanied him, the old K9's movement slower now, but still filled with purpose. The townspeople often stopped by to watch them work, Jack giving hand signals from his wheelchair, Rex responding with calm precision. They were more than teacher and dog now. They were living proof that broken things could serve again. On most evenings, Jack returned to his cabin before sunset. Elena Green and her son Noah would sometimes visit, bringing homemade soup or just company. Noah loved learning the K9 commands. He'd shout sit or stay with proud authority, while Rex obeyed patiently, tail thumping against the floor. Jack would laugh and say, "Careful, kid, he's starting to take orders from you instead of me." The laughter filled the cabin with warmth, but that night, the laughter would give way to a growl. It began just after midnight. The air was unnaturally still. The wind had died, and the moon hung low, pale as a ghost over the forest. Jack woke to the faint sound of Rex shifting near the door. Then, a noise outside, soft at first, the crunch of footsteps on the gravel path. Rex's head shot up. His ears pricked forward, and a low rumble rose from his chest. Jack turned in bed, listening. He heard it again, a metallic click, like someone testing a lock. "Easy, boy," he whispered, wheeling himself quietly to the window. He drew the curtain slightly and froze. A shadow moved between the trees, tall, deliberate. Before Jack could reach for his phone, Rex was already standing, muscles tense, eyes burning gold in the moonlight. The growl deepened. "Stay," Jack commanded softly, but his voice lacked conviction. He reached for his old service pistol, unloaded now, kept only for memory. His hands trembled. The shadow drew closer. Then came the sound of breaking glass. "Rex!" The dog lunged before Jack could stop him, crashing through the door. The silence of Ashland Falls shattered into chaos. Barking, shouting, the thud of struggle. Jack fumbled for the phone, heart hammering. He managed to dial the only number that came to mind. Ryan Porter, a young police officer, and one of the few from Jack's old unit who still visited him. "Ryan, it's Jack. Someone's outside. Rex is after him." "I'm on my way." Ryan's voice came sharp, urgent. Outside, Jack could hear the scuffle, snow crunching, a man's curse, Rex's deep bark echoing through the trees. Then silence, again. The kind that's worse than noise. Minutes stretched, then headlights appeared on the trail. Ryan's cruiser slid to a stop in front of the cabin, tires spraying mud. The young officer, mid-20s, clean-cut and sharp-eyed, jumped out, flashlight in hand. "Jack, you okay?" Jack pointed toward the trees. He went that way, Rex too. They followed the prints together, Ryan moving fast, Jack rolling behind along the path. The flashlight beam caught a shape ahead. A man crouched near the fence, breath steaming in the cold. Rex stood 5 feet away, growling, blocking his escape. The intruder raised his hands. All right, I give up." Ryan moved forward, weapon drawn. "Down on your knees, hands behind your head." The man complied, muttering curses. His jacket was torn, one sleeve bloodied where Rex had caught him. Jack reached the scene just as Ryan cuffed the intruder. The officer nodded toward the dog. He didn't let him move an inch. Good old Rex still knows his job. Rex panted, tail wagging slightly but eyes alert. Jack reached down, rubbing the dog's neck. "You still serve," he said softly. Ryan smiled, breath fogging. "And he still saves." Those words would echo long after the night ended. Back at the cabin, Ryan filled out his report. "He's part of a string of break-ins," he explained. "Been hitting remote houses. Guess he picked the wrong one tonight." Jack nodded, glancing at Rex, who now lay near the fire, licking his paw. "He didn't hesitate," Jack murmured. "It's like something woke up inside him again." Ryan smiled. Once a protector, always a protector. He looked around the small cabin, the photographs, the training harness by the door, the warmth that seemed to live in the space. "You know, sir," he said after a pause, "we could use dogs like him, even retired ones. I'm working with the department on a community safety program, teaching kids about rescue dogs, therapy dogs. You'd be perfect for it." Jack considered it. A few months ago, he would have laughed off the idea. But now, looking at Rex, at the firelight flickering across old scars, he felt something stir. Not pride, but purpose. "Maybe," he said, "maybe it's time to start giving back again." When Ryan left, the forest was silent once more. Dawn crept over the mountains, washing the snow in shades of gold. Jack watched from the window as the young officer's car disappeared down the trail. Beside him, Rex shifted closer, pressing his head against Jack's leg. "You did good tonight," Jack whispered. "Better than I did." Rex wagged his tail once, a slow thump against the floor. Later that morning, Elena and Noah arrived, drawn by the flashing lights they'd seen the night before. Noah rushed in, wide-eyed. "Mom said there was a break-in. Are you okay?" Jack smiled wearily. "We're fine." Rex handled it. Noah's eyes widened, even more. "He stopped the thief? That's awesome." Elena looked relieved but shaken. "I can't believe something like that happened here." "Neither can I," Jack said, but he was ready. Rex lay beside them, half asleep, as Noah reached down to pat his head. "You're the bravest dog in the world," the boy whispered. Jack smiled faintly. "He's just doing what he was born to do." Elena placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Maybe you both are." That evening, as the sun sank behind the ridges, the cabin returned to quiet. But it wasn't the fragile quiet of fear anymore. It was the earned peace of those who had faced danger and stood their ground. Jack sat by the window, staring at the trail where the night's chaos had unfolded. He could still see the faint tracks in the snow, human prints beside paw prints, two lives moving together through the dark. He thought of Ryan's words, "He still serves." Maybe that was true not only for Rex, but for himself. Maybe serving didn't always mean fighting crime or chasing suspects. Maybe it meant protecting something smaller, faith, hope, the fragile belief that the world still had goodness worth guarding. As dusk deepened, the wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of pine and the distant sound of church bells. Rex stirred, ears twitching, then settled back down. Jack leaned forward, resting his hand on the dog's head. "We're not done yet, partner," he said softly. "Not even close." And in the warm glow of the fire, man and dog sat together. Two survivors, two sentinels of a peace they had both fought to reclaim. The last snow of the season had melted from the ridges of Ashland Falls, and the pines whispered again in the wind. The mountain air had lost its bitter edge. It carried the smell of thawing earth, pine sap, and something new, hope. Jack Callahan wheeled himself out onto the porch that morning, a cup of coffee steaming between his palms. Rex lay nearby, his fur silvered around the muzzle now, tail tapping lazily against the wooden floor. For the first time in years, Jack felt the world move without him needing to chase it. The peace was gentle, but it came with a whisper that maybe peace wasn't the end of the story, maybe it was the beginning of another. He looked at the old badge resting on the table beside him. The metal was scratched, the letters half faded. Once that badge had meant duty, courage, and a life lived for others. Now it meant something quieter. Endurance. Linda Hayes had called him the night before, her voice full of that calm warmth he had come to trust. "Jack," she'd said, "we're thinking about starting something at the rescue center, a program for traumatized dogs, the ones no one adopts because they're too scared, too broken. They need patience, structure, someone who understands." Jack hadn't answered right away. He'd looked down at Rex, who was sleeping by his chair, paws twitching in dreams. "You think I could do that?" he'd finally asked. Linda's reply had been simple. I don't think you could. I think you already are. Now, as the morning sunlight filtered through the pine branches, Jack smiled faintly. He turned to Rex. What do you say, partner? One more mission? Rex raised his head, ears perking, eyes bright with the same golden fire that had once guided them through storms and chaos. He didn't need to bark. His tail spoke for him. That afternoon, Jack arrived at the Riverbend Animal Rescue with Rex in the passenger seat. The center had changed. Brighter now, full of volunteers, children, and noise. There were new kennels, new signs, new hope. And at the entrance, Linda waited, her parka flapping in the spring wind. You sure about this? She asked as he rolled down the ramp. Not really, Jack said, grinning. But that's how all the good things start, isn't it? Linda laughed. Come on in, Commander. Your students are waiting. Inside, the kennels were filled with eyes, some wary, some curious, some dull with fear. Jack felt their tension, the kind he'd seen in soldiers and victims alike, that silent plea of, please don't hurt me again. Rex walked beside him, sniffing, tail wagging softly. He stopped before a cage where a young shepherd mix huddled in the corner, trembling. Rex sat down, lowered his head, and simply waited. The trembling stopped. The small dog raised its muzzle slightly, just enough to meet his eyes. Jack exhaled. You see that? He whispered. He's teaching already. Linda's smile was gentle. Then it settled. We'll name the program The School of Faith. Weeks passed, and the name stuck. The School of Faith became more than a training program. It became a gathering place. Elena volunteered every weekend, her calm voice and careful hands coaxing the shyest dogs out of hiding. Noah spent his afternoons after school sweeping kennels, handing out treats, and jotting notes in a little blue notebook he called the Book of Brave Dogs. Ryan Porter, when off duty, brought equipment from the police department, old harnesses, vests, leashes. He even arranged for a few cadets to visit, so the kids could watch rescue demonstrations. Funny, Ryan said one day, watching Rex guide a small terrier through an obstacle course. You two might be retired, but looks like you're still changing lives. Jack smiled, eyes fixed on Rex. He never stopped serving. I'm just catching up. By summer, the program had drawn attention from nearby towns. People came not just to adopt, but to learn. Veterans with PTSD, children with anxiety, families healing from loss. They came to watch the dogs that had once been frightened learn to trust again. And always, at the center of it all, was Rex. Patient, gentle, steady. When a new dog arrived, shaking and silent, Rex would approach slowly, nose to nose, then settle beside it until the trembling stopped. Elena often said, he doesn't just teach dogs to trust again, he teaches people too. One bright Sunday afternoon, Linda organized a small ceremony to celebrate the program's success. The rescue yard was decorated with ribbons and wildflowers. Children ran between the kennels, laughing. A wooden sign above the gate now read, The School of Faith, founded in honor of Rex, companion of courage. Jack sat near the front, his wheelchair adorned with a small badge-shaped plaque that read, Trainer. Elena stood beside him, radiant in the sunlight, holding a bouquet of lilies. Noah clutched something shiny in his hands. When the crowd quieted, Linda stepped up to the microphone. We started this place to heal broken dogs, she began. But along the way, it healed us too. One man, one dog, and their story reminded us that faith isn't about seeing what's ahead. It's about walking forward anyway. She turned to Jack. Jack Callahan and Rex showed us that second chances are real. Today, we honor that. Noah stepped forward shyly. In his hands was a small medal engraved with a paw print and the words, Companion of Courage. He knelt beside Rex, his voice trembling with pride. For being brave twice, once for saving your partner, and once for teaching us all how to be brave again. The crowd applauded. Rex wagged his tail, lowering his head as Noah placed the medal gently around his neck. Jack blinked rapidly, fighting the sting in his eyes. He placed a hand on Rex's head, feeling the warmth of life pulsing beneath his palm. Then he looked up at the crowd and said, his voice rough but steady, He didn't just survive, he taught us all how to live again. There was a silence, deep, reverent, and then a swell of clapping that rolled through the rescue yard like wind through the trees. Elena wiped her eyes. Ryan saluted playfully from the back. Even Linda, who never cried, had to turn away for a moment. The ceremony ended as the sun began to set. The sky turned to gold, and the light fell softly over Rex's fur, turning it almost radiant. Jack wheeled forward, gazing toward the horizon. He whispered, half to himself, half to something larger. "We made it, partner." Rex turned his head, pressing his muzzle gently against Jack's arm, a gesture so familiar it made time stand still. That night, after everyone had gone, Jack sat alone in the training yard. The kennels were quiet, the wind warm with summer. Rex lay beside him, dozing lightly. Jack folded his hands and closed his eyes. "Thank you, Lord," he said softly, "for giving me a reason to keep going, for bringing him back when I needed him most, and for showing me that even broken hearts can build something whole." The air was still for a moment. Then a breeze stirred, carrying the faint sound of the church bells from town, a melody that rose and faded like a benediction. Jack looked at Rex, whose eyes were half closed, the metal glinting faintly in the moonlight. "You've done your duty, old friend," he murmured, "but somehow, I think our lesson's just begun." Above them, the stars shimmered, countless, distant, eternal, and beneath that vast sky, man and dog sat side by side, their shadows merging in the soft light, living proof that faith, once lost, could be found again. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not thunder or light, but quiet moments that heal what we thought was lost. Just like Jack and Rex, we all face storms that test our faith and break our hearts. Yet, God never leaves us alone. He sends help in ways we do not expect through a loyal friend, a kind stranger, or a second chance we never saw coming. In our own lives, when we choose compassion over fear and hope over doubt, we become part of His miracle. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that God still works in mysterious ways. Leave a comment, say, "Amen," if you believe that faith and love can heal every wound, and may God bless and protect everyone watching this right now.